And we're live. Welcome to the Azure SDK Community Standup, where we bring you the latest updates, insights, and discussions from the world of Azure development. Today, we have my co host, Sandeep Sen, and our guest, Krista Pratico. And they're joining us to talk about the Azure SDK for Python and discuss how this powerful tool empowers developers to easily build robust applications. In today's episodes, we will talk about OpenAI with your own data using Python. So stay with us and as we dive into the world of Azure development. All right. Let's see what's in the agenda for today. Let's move into that one. So we're going to be talking a little bit about what's new in September. We're going to be talking about the main subject is going to be the Azure SDK for Python, and we're going to have demos with Krista. Uh, let's talk about the team. So as a friendly reminder, this is the PM team for the Azure SDK team. So if you ever use one of our products or one of our services, it will be a really good idea to just nudge us. And you can find us on Twitter or X, or also you can find us on GitHub. And I strongly recommend if you have any suggestions, any questions or something, just reach out to us. I like putting people on the spot, but we always like to learn more from other people. So let's talk about the releases for September. So we have a lot of initial stable and initial betas. We have Monitor OT distro for Python. Go has maps and network cloud. JavaScript has network cloud, resource connector. Keyboard admin, search keys, secrets for Go are there. I see Sandeep must be happy because he is all about Go. uh,
Yep.
the
So
beta.
this new uh, class of libraries for Key Vault will let you use Key Vault on Go natively. And another thing is the monitor with open telemetry on Python that would be useful in your telemetry tasks. Yeah.
Nice, that's exciting. I know that people like coding in their language and having an SDK that you can do anything, the same stuff with any language. That's exciting. Good for Go. Anyway, let's just go back to the next one. Let's just get started. First of all, let's introduce Krista. Hi, Krista. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Good. Thank you for being here with us. I know that you prepared a really cool demo. Do you agree with that, Sandeep?
Before she goes, what do you do, Krista? Like, explain to our audiences, what do you work on? What do you do?
Yeah, so I'm a developer on the Azure SDK for Python team, and I work specifically on the Python SDK, typically in like the cognitive services AI side of things.
That's exciting world to be working on. Actually, why don't you tell us what you do too, Sandeep, really quick?
Oh, I'm a product manager for Azure SDK. I specialize in Java and Go. And other than that, I also work for app config. So if you're looking for a replacement of HashiCorp console, hit me up.
And I'm the PM for JavaScript and TypeScript, and also I am the PM for cognitive search. So a lot of the stuff that Krista is going to be doing today has to do with one of the services that I work with. So I'm really excited to see what she's going to show us, how she's using that service. So, all right, should we dive right in?
Yeah. So, Krista, why don't you tell us what do you want to show us today?
Yeah, let me share my screen here. All right. Are we seeing my screen?
Yes, we do.
Awesome. All right. Well, I guess let's just jump in. So I'm super excited today to share the new public preview of Azure OpenAI on your own data using the Python OpenAI SDK. So, large language models have become super popular, and people might ask, how do I use AI in a way that actually boosts my productivity or is tailored to my specific need or my specific business data? So, Azure OpenAI Service does offer GPT models, which are capable of understanding natural language and code. However, regular ChatGPT is not going to be familiar with your own data. It's trained on point-in-time data, on an extensive data set using the internet, but not your own data. So what Azure OpenAI on your own data or bring your own data does is gives us a way to connect our model to our own data without needing to retrain or fine-tune the model. And this process also helps to ground the model on our own data. And so why would you want to ground the model on your own data? So we know that ChatGPT will sometimes respond with made-up information. And the level of uncertainty of how the model may respond may make you think twice about putting an AI-based solution into production in front of customers. So by grounding in your own data, we're reducing the chance of the model responding with false information. We're basically saying, this is your knowledge base, respond based on this data. And if you can't find an answer, then just say that you don't know. So kind of the behind the scenes of how this works. So I kind of have like a chatbot scenario here. User is asking questions, and then we're using ChatGPT to respond to those questions. And so we said that we wanted to connect the model to a data source that could be used for knowledge retrieval. And we're going to do that with Azure Cognitive Search. So for example, and what's diagrammed here, we're going to use a special type of search called vector search. And with vector search, first, what we're going to need to do is take the data in our data sources and convert those to embeddings by the OpenAI model. And once we have those as embeddings, we're going to ingest that into our search index. And so, what is an embedding? I'm no ML expert, but an embedding is a vector or a numerical representation of our content that is going to capture the semantic meaning of the text. So large language.
And what's a vector for our audiences?
Yeah, so a vector here, which we have, it's a vector of, basically a like a mathematical representation of these real numbers. And although it just looks like numbers to us, that actually has semantic meaning to the model. So we're going to take that embedding and we are going to ingest it into our search index. And like I said, the large language models are going to be trained on large amounts of data to, they are trained on large amounts of data to identify patterns and relationships between words. And so during this training, they kind of learn to represent inputs as a vector of real numbers. So, kind of what we're looking at here. The end result of that training is that words with similar meanings are going to be kind of closer together in this vector space. And so we can use like different types of algorithms to search that vector space to retrieve data that's similar to our input or has close semantic meaning to our input. So in our example here, after we've ingested our embeddings into the search index from our data, when a user asks a question, we're going to convert that question to an embedding. So that's our query vector here. And then we're going to use Azure Cognitive Search to do that similarity vector search between our input and between our data. And it's going to retrieve the data that is most similar to our question. And then we're going to pull that data as context and resubmit it back to ChatGPT to use to respond to the question. And this is actually following a popular NLP technique called retrieval augmented generation. So, we're retrieving information from a data source, And then we're using it to augment the prompt so that the model may respond more accurately. And the best part about Azure OpenAI on your own data or bring your own data is that all of this is kind of going to be abstracted away from us in the code. We're going to do like a one-time setup. And then all we need to do is point ChatGPT to our data source, and the rest will be done for us.
So I, as a end user, I don't have to worry about creating these vectors, is it? I can just upload the data source and give it to Cognitive Search and OpenAI, and it will do its magic?
That's totally correct. Yeah, so all of this behind the scenes, after we do our one-time setup, we don't have to write any code to do this. This is going to happen, and Azure OpenAI and Azure Cognitive Search are going to handle all of this for us. So we're going to walk into that one-time setup in our example, and then we're going to see how easy this is to use with the Python SDK.
I think this is the right moment to do a shameless plug. But if you want to learn more and deep dive into this is actually going to be our episode in November. We're going to go hard in cognitive search and talk about vectors and all the good things that the SDK has to offer. So,
And are we using Cognitive Search as a vector database here?
Yeah, we're using that as the vector index here.
And can we replace it with other open source stuff like Chroma or Pinecone, theoretically?
Currently, it is only supported with Azure Cognitive Search.
Okay. So yeah, let's dive in how to set this up and how the backend magic happens.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to start with our example here. And so let's say we have this fictional company, Contoso. They have an HR department that receives a lot of questions from employees, and they want to build an AI-based chatbot that's going to be able to answer these questions and be grounded in that Contoso company policy data. So I have some example documents here, and we can look at them right here. They're just text-based files that outline the policies at Contoso. We have an attendance policy, a sick leave policy, social media and vacation. And so I'm using .txt here, but Azure OpenAI on your own data does support other formats like Word documents, PDF, PowerPoint, Markdown, HTML, lots of different formats. But to get started, we do have a few prerequisites here. So we will need an Azure OpenAI resource with our models deployed. We're going to need an Azure Cognitive Search resource to create that index. We're going to ingest our data into it so that we can query it. We're going to need an Azure Blob storage resource to store our data, to store our documents. And then, of course, we need our documents that are going to be used as our data. So I really want to focus on the Python SDK here. So I'm going to do this one-time setup in the Azure AI Studio. So I'm going to go ahead and switch my screen really quick.
So the goal here is for ChatGPT to read these docs, and if I, as a employee of that company, ask any question about my leave policy or social media policy, answer them based on the facts from these documents.
That's right. So,
okay.
Yeah, we're taking our information, we're doing knowledge retrieval from our data sources, and we're kind of combining that with the reasoning capabilities of Azure OpenAI and ChatGPT.
Okay.
All right, so here we are in our Azure AI Studio. If you have Azure OpenAI access, you have access to this portal. I'll go to my deployments, and I do have the models that I need deployed. I have GPT-3.5 Turbo, which is our chat model. This also works with GPT-4. And I have my embedding model that I'm going to use to create embeddings from our data source. If we go back to the main page, I'm going to click on this Bring Your Own Data preview.
Yeah. And just for information for our audience, these models are pre-installed in your Azure OpenAI. You can just select them. You
In the
don't have to
studio?
create those models.
Yeah, so I'm going to select a data source, and I've already uploaded my documents to Blob Storage, so I'm going to select that. They are in my policy documents container, so some of this is filled in for me, but I'm just going to enter in a few things. So I need my cognitive search resource. I'm going to create an index and give it a name here. So we're just going to call it Contoso. And then a really neat thing here is that this allows you to do a data refresh or schedule a refresh on your data source. So if I have data that's very dynamic or is expected to change over time, I can schedule a refresh here so that my model is always kept up to date with the latest information. But for me, I'm just going to click once here. We said we were going to use vector search, so I'm going to add that. I'm going to select my embedding model that I have deployed, and then I'm just going to acknowledge that my account is going to use this. Again, we're going to use the vector search type, so I'll again do the acknowledgement. And really, that's all it is to the setup. I can hit save and close here. It's going to take a few minutes to set this up and finish, but I've already set this up in the background. So we're going to jump back into VS Code now and take a look at the code. So once again, let me just switch my screen back to VS Code.
And the time it takes to process those vectors is determined by the amount of data, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Size of the document, yeah.
Yeah, and so my documents are quite small, so it's not going to take too long. But for larger documents, you would expect a longer waiting time.
I don't think they change attendance or sick leave policy too often. So
yeah.
I hope
So
not.
let's jump into the setup. I'm going to install the libraries that I'm going to use here. So
can we go a couple of sizes bigger on the font?
Yeah, let me try that. How's that?
Yep, that's perfect.
Works.
Okay. So I'm going to install the libraries that I need. We're going to use the Python OpenAI library. We're going to use Azure Identity to authenticate with the Python SDK. And then we're going to use python.env to load my environment variables into the notebook.
Which, by the way, next month we have Karishma talking about identity.
So with those all...
I'm always plugging. So
yes, we're setting this up for the next stream. So that's really exciting.
Yeah,
I'm just giving you a little taste today.
Yes.
So with our libraries installed, I can now import what I need, and then we're gonna go ahead and load those environment variables so that I have access to them. And we just need our OpenAI endpoint, our search endpoint, key, and index name to light up this scenario.
Okay.
And so, yeah, we did say that we're going to authenticate with Azure Active Directory, and I'm going to use the Azure CLI to log in. So I'll go ahead and run this cell. You're not going to see it, but this is going to open another window for me, and I'm going to click log in. So that will take a few seconds.
Thank you for making that point, because sometimes I watch demos online and then I don't see what's happening and they don't mention it, and I get lost sometimes when I'm following something. So thank you for pointing that out. So the magic is happening behind the authentication.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've went ahead and logged in. This is taking longer than normal. I don't know if it's because I'm sharing my screen, but I went ahead and I logged in. But now we're ready to configure the Python OpenAI SDK with Azure. So the Python OpenAI SDK does work with both OpenAI endpoints and with Azure endpoints. So to configure with Azure, we just have to set a few variables here. we're going to set that we're working with Azure Active Directory. We're going to pass our Azure OpenAI endpoint, the API version, which is going to be the August 1 preview. That's what supports bring your own data. And then I'm going to create a default Azure credential. I'm going to fetch my token, and I'm going to set that to the API key so that I'm authenticated with the library.
Okay, that sounds straightforward.
Yeah, so now we're good to go. So let's jump into some code. So we did say that this is a preview feature of Azure OpenAI. And so we need to be able to target the preview chat completions extensions endpoint to use bring your own data. And so I've created this convenience function that's going to take the deployment ID of the model that we're going to use, and it's going to reroute us to the extensions preview endpoint so that we can use the feature.
And once it's out of preview, then we won't need this, right? Then it would be the regular endpoint, is it?
Right. That is the plan. And so I'm going to call my convenience function with my deployment ID here. And again, we're using 3.5 Turbo, but this does work with GPT-4. And now for the fun part. So I have this function called ask question. We're going to ask or pass in a question. We'll optionally choose to show context in the output. But all we're doing here is we're calling the chat completion method call. We're passing in the question as messages from the user. We're passing in our deployment ID. And then, like we said before, we've done our setup. So all we need to do now is point ChatGPT to our data source, to our Azure Cognitive Search Index. So we have that all set up here. And I can run this cell, and we should be good to go now to start testing the model and asking it questions. So I have a question here. I think it's, a likely question. Do I need a doctor's note if I need to take sick leave? So we'll go ahead and run this cell and see what the model says. So according to sick leave policy, Contoso may require a doctor's note for sick leave exceeding 3 consecutive days. So our model used our policy data to be able to answer that question. And the reason that I know that is because I see this little doc1 in a bracket at the end of the sentence. And what this is ChatGPT basically citing its sources for us. So we can ask another question.
So how can I actually cite the actual doc rather than doc1?
Yeah, we're going to look at that right now. So I'm asking another question, and this time we're going to show context. So I'm passing show context into that function so that in our output, we're actually going to look at the context that's contained in the response. So now we've outputted the actual citations in the response. So again, if we look at the answer here, it's saying that, according to vacation policy, employees, blah, 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 are eligible to take vacation days. And so that doc1, which I guess it's one index space instead of 0 index space, refers to this first citation in the response.
Okay.
So our Contoso vacation policy. And the really cool part, and the part that I feel like kind of demystifies this a little bit, is that this content property contains the exact context that the model used to answer the question. So if I want to, like you said, cite my sources here, I could go into my citations collection here and pick out, the title of the policy. It even has the URL here of where that policy is stored. So it's a really nice way to be able to do like knowledge retrieval and be able to cite our sources so that we know we're not just making stuff up here.
Yeah, and if it's a backend server, maybe we can parse this JSON and put in the proper links and docs. What if I ask a question out of this world?
That's what I was thinking. Is like outside of the data that you gave it, the data that you brought.
Yeah, we
You
can,
know,
Well,
we can
how's the
try
weather
that.
for
What do you want
tomorrow?
to ask?
what's the best programming language? Which is
Oh
none, but
no.
still, let's just ask.
This is a dangerous one.
Oh,
So
there
we
you go.
did restrict the model to our own data here. So it's just telling us that, it wasn't able to find that information. Please try another topic. So
Very polite.
Very polite.
yeah,
Yeah.
very polite.
So we can. So this demo basically is a replacement for a HR chatbot. To be honest with you, to do with
Could be.
leaves, and can be a policy chatbot for the company, or maybe a standard operating procedure chatbot for a company. A lot of use cases can be done with this, and it doesn't go out of bounds and gets you like weird responses from the internet.
Yeah, and Vector made it more uh, able to get the information more correct, more exact, right? Like than before. So yeah, I
Right.
like that.
We do have some questions,
Yeah,
and
let's move into the Q&A. Um,
yeah, I
let's start
think we
with
have two questions from, and if I'm butchering the pronunciation, I'm sorry. It's Alhan. So I'm going to show the questions here and let Krista answer. So it's like, understanding is you are allowing AI to use and manipulate the data retrieved from a particular client. By client, I mean a doc, I guess.
So we're using Azure Cognitive Search to retrieve the data from our data source, and then we're resubmitting that to ChatGPT. So ChatGPT doesn't necessarily have access and is manipulating our data. I think that's what you're asking.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like we saw here, the content here is being fed back into the prompt. So we don't see it in the code, but you can imagine if we didn't have this bring your own data feature, that you could do this yourself by feeding that content into the prompt here, having the content, the question, and then letting ChatGPT answer based on that content. So this is more of like a pre-built solution that is going to help you kind of achieve that retrieval augmented generation pattern that we talked about.
And I think the next portion of this question was, is it really uploading the data set to ChatGPT? I think you answered that we are not exactly uploading it to ChatGPT. It's
Yeah, the
more of.
data stays in the Azure Cognitive Search Index.
And one more thing I would like to add here is, this is your deployment of OpenAI. So this data never
leaves them.
is never exposed to the public ChatGPT ever. So this stays in your deployment in Azure. I think we have another two questions from Andrej. One is, are you running this notebook on Docker, or maybe even broadened in this? Can you run it on your local host machine and Docker?
I'm just running this locally. I actually have never tried running it on Docker. That sounds fun.
Yeah, I think theoretically it's possible. You can run it on Docker. Give it a try and let us know if you face any issues. As long as you have set up your login to Azure, it should work on Docker as well. And the next question is a big one from Andrej. Like, is there a option to filter the data? Like, what happens if we deploy some documents with PII and we don't want it to be searchable on the answers, basically
Yeah.
for ChatGPT?
So I know that Azure Cognitive Search does provide a filtering feature, and I believe that you can pass it in our parameters here. I would have to honestly go look back at the MS Learn documentation there. I remember seeing something about it. But I know that we're going to cover a lot more about this in a future stream. And so we can make sure to kind of talk about the filtering capabilities there. But yes, I do think it is possible.
So it's possible mainly through Azure Cognitive Search itself, according to you, that we can filter out the data. So the vector created does not include PII data, right? Okay. And we'll reply to you, Andrej, with more details, exactly linking the MS Learn site where you can find these options. I don't think there are any more questions.
No, it seems that that's it. Well, thank you so much, Krista. This was really helpful. Thank you. I always advise at the end that if you want to help us with what we're doing in Azure, or you have any suggestions, any uh, any advice that you want to get because you're stuck with something, there's a lot of places where you can reach us. You can go to the SDKs to or you can go to GitHub and give us feedback that way. That's a better communication, more direct, like plug in some issues and we can triage. If we don't have the answer, we're going to find somebody that can help you with that. Follow us in Azure SDK on Twitter or X. Subscribe to the blog. We every month we have amazing releases and we have some demos in there. We have some interesting stuff happening on the blog. And if you are interested in the AI world and all the stuff that we are working on, go to that one, the aka.ms/azai. There's a lot of a lot of samples in different languages and a lot of stuff, really cool stuff happening in there. So do you have something else to add, Krista, before we leave?
Yeah, what is your one suggestion you want to give to your Python developer community?
I guess kind of like in line with the theme of the demo today. If you have the opportunity to try out some of these things that are coming out of this like AI explosion, I highly recommend it. I think I'm particularly thinking of like GitHub Copilot. I enabled GitHub Copilot on VS Code with the VS Code extension like maybe a few months ago, and it's pretty game changing in terms of Python support. It can like actually feel like you are pair programming with another Python developer in your editor, but that developer is like several steps ahead of you.
That's exciting.
So yeah, I think it's super helpful for beginner Python developers and seasoned Python developers alike. Yeah, highly recommend.
So Krista says use Copilot. And with that, I think we are going to end the stream, Hector, right? Until next month.
Yeah, next month, follow us because we're having Karishma talking about identity. It's going to be a very interesting topic, and we'll be here. Thank you again, Sandeep. Thank you, Krista. Actually, the one last comment. This was such a great talk. Thank you, Krista, for a wonderful presentation. There you go. You got some.
And it was from Isabella.
Isabella Kai. Yeah. So
Yeah.
sweet. All right. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next month and keep track of the blog and to learn more what we're doing. But until then, we'll see you the second Thursday of October. Have a great day. Bye.
See you.
Awesome.
Bye.
Thanks for having me. Bye.